Republicans on the House Judiciary Committee are already anticipating victory on Tuesday, and they've released an extensive roadmap of investigations into the Biden administration if they retake control of the chamber.
Our congressional correspondent Kilmeny Duchardt joins us now with those details from Capitol Hill. Kilmeny.
Well, this document is over 1,000 pages, giving voters a clear picture of what oversight will look like if Republicans are in charge. It includes allegations of a political bias within the Justice Department and FBI in terms of how they've conducted their investigations based on reports from whistleblowers. In the report's executive summary, it lays out 5 of those accusations. The first is that the FBI is artificially inflating statistics about domestic violent extremism in the nation, classifying cases related to January 6th to overstate that threat. How the FBI is using its counterterrorism authorities to investigate parents who spoke at school board meetings, labeling parents with threat tags. And it goes on to say that the FBI has abused its foreign intelligence authorities to spy on American citizens, including people associated with the campaign of President Trump in 2016. It further says that the FBI is, quote, clearing the Bureau of employees who dissent from its woke leftist agenda. In other words, minimizing employees and conservative views. And finally, whistleblowers have explained how the FBI's political meddling is dragging the criminal side of the Bureau down as resources are pulled from real law enforcement duties. We reported on that before, where this individual said that they were told that child sex abuse cases were no longer a priority. Congressman Jim Jordan, he's already done extensive work on this while Republicans have been in the minority, and will likely be chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, which would give him even more authority to investigate these claims. Republicans plan to look at a number of other issues, including the raid on former President Trump's home, the suppression of an investigation into Hunter Biden, as well as big tech censorship of conservative voices, all done with the approval of House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who, if Republicans take back the House on Tuesday, will be potentially the next Speaker of the House.
All right, Kilmeny, thanks so much. Here with their reactions, former New York Congressman Peter King and Democrat strategist Bill Caruso. Peter, I'm going to start with you. The FBI gone too woke, this 1,000-page document from Republicans on the DOJ and FBI. Your reaction?
Yeah, I've only read excerpts from the report, but I've had serious questions about the FBI the last several years. Not the men and women who are out there, the agents, not the people in the field doing the work. But again, being on the Intelligence Committee, I had real differences with Jim Comey. I thought he was definitely slanting the whole Russia investigation against President Trump, not giving us the full story. People like Andrew McCabe, people like Strzok and others who are investigating and showing their anti-Trump bias. Also, the way the Hunter Biden issue has been largely covered up. It does raise issues. And on the issue of extremism, white supremacy is evil, it's wrong. But on the other hand, very little coverage is given to excesses by the Black Lives Matter movement and Antifa. So I think it has been politicized at the top. I hope that can be changed. I've been disappointed in the current FBI director, and I hope that again, that in the days and weeks and months ahead, that that can be changed. That this report, again, I haven't seen all of it, and I can attest to all of it. But I do think there is a problem at the the higher levels of the FBI.
If you check out our Newsmax Platinum platform, folks, you'll see this article: Top 5 priorities for Republican-controlled Congress. Stop Biden's agenda: economy and energy, border security, investigations, and rein in spending. So here's the thing that I'm wondering, Bill. Investigations may have backfired on the Democrats. And I think a lot of people, while they want to bring some of the political motivations at the top into daylight, they still don't want to see a Congress busy investigating something when they're still experiencing inflation, they still have crime in the streets, they're experiencing all kinds of things that doesn't help them when there's an investigation going on.
Yeah, I mean, the American, the policy guy in me, the adult in me, doesn't think there's any merit to this. And to be honest with you, I don't think it is exactly where the American people don't want us to go. I think the Democrats have set the roadmap for this. I think we started with an impeachment hearing of a sitting president. at the dawn of COVID and took our eye off the ball. And I think it concluded in a January 6th investigation in one of the worst tragedies that affected our democracy. But I don't think it went anywhere. I think America is tired of this. America wants us to get onto the issues of addressing our economy, getting our country back together again, not this division. And so the partisan me is like, great, fellas and ladies, you haven't learned anything. And that means the Democrats are going to come back in 2 years and take control. But this is not what the American people are going to vote for on Tuesday. And I think we're going to see that rejected. But if the Republicans want to go down that path and learn it for themselves, God bless them.
Yeah, Peter, your take on that, too. Do you think Americans are having investigation fatigue at this point?
Yeah, they are. And I think it is important that it be investigated, but it should be done in more of a low-key manner. Shouldn't be done with hyperbole. They shouldn't be promising more than they can deliver. And what I'm looking for is just have corrections to the top. I'm not looking for scalps. I'm not looking for this to become a show trial. But I do think that too much political influence has gone into the higher levels of the FBI. But in doing that, I don't want to do anything to question the integrity and the dedication of the 99% of the members of the FBI, the agents, the operatives who do a terrific job. And again, we should not be emphasizing an investigation. If we find something dramatic, that's one thing. I don't think you will. I think when you're talking about something that requires a low-key, sustained investigation, not on the front pages, not in prime time.
All right, let's take a listen to something Hillary Clinton said last night at a campaign rally with New York Governor Kathy Hochul. This is what she said.
Ads about crime every 30 seconds, right? No solutions, but just a lot of really fearful, scary pictures and scary music. And of course, I want everybody to be safe. Honestly, who's against that?
You know, I got to tell you, Bill, if she were to say that about inflation, I think maybe she has an argument. It's a challenge to bring down inflation, considering all the spending the government has already done. But when it comes to crime, I hear everybody say, keep the bad guys behind bars. Stop being soft on crime. Actually, keep them in. Forget this catch us bail nonsense. We need to hold people accountable. We need to convict them. We need to send them to prison. Are they not getting that message across? That may be why people are going to go red.
Yeah, to some extent, although, you know, I would also counter that with, I think adding more guns into the equation isn't the answer either. And I do hear that from my other side of the aisle friends. You know, we're gonna, you know, give everybody guns. We're gonna have guns on subways and things of that nature. I don't think that's a solution either. But I'll tell you one place I am heartened by, and I'm glad to hear Democrats finally talking about crime, because I do think it is an issue. This Democrat thinks it. But I watched Gavin Newsom, not exactly a conservative, stand strong now out in California and challenge local governments withholding significant funding until they get their acts together, addressing homelessness, crime on their streets. That's a real plan. That's using the power of the purse. That's a governor standing up and saying enough is enough. That's a good Democrat. And by the way, nobody's accusing Gavin Newsom of being a conservative or even a moderate sometimes. So that's a real plan. I like that plan. I don't like the idea that we're going to say, well, we just need to add more guns to the streets here, and that's going to solve this problem. That isn't going to solve the problem.
All right. Peter King, Bill Caruso, always a pleasure talking to you. The only thing I don't like talking to Bill Caruso, he always dressed better than I am, always looks better.
Better than me.
That little gray hair looks like he's got everything he says you believe. I think we're in the wrong. Should be sitting here.
Well, I'm better that way. I have more gray hair than Bill's.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.